Hello, I'm going to tell you about my coursework, Features of Translation of Aviation Terms in Narrow-Field Aviation Texts. We live in a time of rapid development of science, thanks to which new terms that need translation appear every day. With the beginning of the scientific and technical revolution, many scientific and technical fields are developing, among which aviation occupies a prominent place. After the launch of the first artificial satellite of the Earth and the first manned launch of the spaceship with a person on board, the exploration of space around the Earth, the development of rocketry and cosmonautics began. It is since that time that aviation and its terminology continue to increase production capacity. Such a rapid development of science involves the rapid creation of terms that must be translated. The translation of terms plays a big role in the development of aviation because it promotes interlingual communications between scientists. The relevance of my scientific research is determined by the fact that the problem of translating English aviation terms into Ukrainian will remain relevant because terminology is an important part of aviation, and English is international language of communication. The scientific novelty is the expansion and addition of information on the translation of aviation terms. The object of research is narrow-field aviation text. The subject of the study is the features of the translation of aviation terms in narrow-field texts. The purpose of the research is to reveal the peculiarities and ways of translating aviation terms in narrow-field aviation texts. To fulfill the purpose of the work, we completed the following practical tasks: defined and systematized the concept of terminology and term, analyze the theory of aviation terms, ways of their formation, and peculiarities of translation, formed a corpus of sample of aviation terms, provided a classification of aviation terms based on a sample, investigated ways of creating new aviation terms in English and ways of translating them into Ukrainian, investigated interlingual transformations during the translation of aviation terms, investigated the features of the translation of aviation terminological abbreviations and acronyms, translated a narrow-field aviation text, and analyzed the translation of terms and their field. The material for the study was a sample corpus consisting of English aviation terms and their Ukrainian equivalents from online dictionaries and from the English-Ukrainian Dictionary of Aviation Terms by Hilchenko, as well as a narrow-field aviation text on general information about aircraft power supply systems. Terms are a necessary component of the development and functioning of scientific and technical knowledge. That is why they need high-quality translation into other languages to ensure interlingual communication between scientists. As a result of the rapid development of science and technology, international scientific and cultural communications, the vocabulary of aviation terminology is rapidly being enriched. Accordingly, there is a strong need for classification and translation of aviation terms and texts. We have systematized, expanded, and supplemented information on the translation, classification, and operation of aviation terms. Thanks to the worked-out theoretical material, the corpus of the sample, as well as a narrow-field text on general information about aircraft power supply systems, the peculiarities and ways of translating terms in text of different styles have been revealed. A term is a word or phrase that means a special concept and has a clear definition that defines the concept and strictly limits the conceptual sphere. Unlike commonly used words, the term is unambiguous, within a specific terminological system, neutral, logical, and does not have an emotional and expressive character. The term has a specific scope and is part of certain terminology. Terminology is a set of terms that express the concept of certain field of science and technology. The main means of adjunction of aviation terminology is the use of commonly used forms as terms. There are two ways of transforming a commonly used lexeme into term. Its meaning is specialized, or lexeme is used in a figurative sense. There are two main ways of forming new aviation terms in the English language: lexical, semantic, and morphological. The lexical semantic methods consist of the semantic splitting of a word to form homonyms. Morphological methods of a word formation are divided into affixal, stem fusion, and abbreviation. Classification of aviation terms is provided based on the selected sample. The main semantic groups of aviation terminology combine terms to denote general concepts of processes, objects, properties, etc. The most typical among them are the following groups of terms. For the designation of machines mechanism, plane, airplane, aerostat. The details of equipment, wing, lamp, blade, elevator. Actions, production processes, air transportation, launching, landing. Position specialties, pilot, stewardess, aeromechanic. Professional associations, crew, air group, squadron. Buildings, airbase, hangar, airbase. For designation of sciences series branches, glidderism, astronautics, aerodynamics. Units of measurement standards, lux, capacity, atom, ampere. Special documentation, act, certificate, license. Substances, materials, composite air, varnish, fuel. Aviation terminology has borrowed many terms from other fields of knowledge, marine terms, automobile terms, general scientific terms, technical terms, etc. Translation transformations are divided into lexical transformations, grammatical transformations, and lexical-grammatical transformations. Lexical transformation describes the formal and meaningful relations between words and phrases in the original and the translation. They include transcription, transliteration, tracing, lexical semantic substitution, generalization, modulation, semantic development. Grammatical transformations are changes in the structure of a sentence, as well as a replacement of the syntactic and morphological order. Types of grammatical transformation: literal translation, articulation, permutation, addition, and omission, substitutions, forms of words, parts of speech, members or types of sentence, etc. Lexical, grammatical, or complex transformations are transformations that belong at the same time to lexical and grammatical units of the original or an interlevel. They make the transition from lexical units to grammatical ones and vice versa. Such transformations include antonomic translation, descriptive translation, explication, compensation. The methods most often used for the translation of aviation terminological vocabulary: tracing, translation using the genitive case, translation using different prepositions, translation of one of the members of a word combination with a group of explanatory verbs, and translation with a change of, in the order of components. A characteristic feature of aviation terminology in English is the tendency to brevity of expression, which is confirmed by the presence of a large number of abbreviations. A necessary condition for the translation of abbreviation and acronyms is to refer to a broad context, decipher the original form of a word or phrase, because most often abbreviations are translated into a descriptive way. For example, ACCESS, Area Control Center, районно-диспетчерский центр. After analyzing the text of the aviation orientation or general information about aircraft power supply system, it was found that due to the specific of the use of the power supply system, most of the terms in the text were general scientific, 83%, while only 17% were field specific. Regarding translation methods, the most common was tracing, 83% as well, followed by tracing with permutation, 8%, explication and grammatical transformation, both for 3%. Various types of substitutions, and 2%, and tracing with generalization, 1%. Thus, it can be concluded that grammatical transformation occur at several levels at once. Therefore, the main goal of translation is to achieve relevance. The translation must be an analog of the original. The main task of the translator in achieving adequacy is to skillfully perform various translation transformations, so the translated text reflects all the information contained in the original text as accurately as possible, while maintaining the appropriate standards of the translated language. For the productive development of science and technology, further improvement of linguistic means of information transmission is necessary, among which terms and methods of their translation play the main role. Thank you for attention.